Hey YouTube, Kira Twig here, bringing you all an update to my Evilswarm Yugioh deck profile for December 2018. I want to bring you all an update to the deck. It feels like it's been quite a while, and as I stated in other deck profiles, I don't really like when I go over the yearly mark with updates to my decks, and it turns out the last time I did an Evilswarm deck profile was in January, so we were creeping up on the anniversary to this update for the deck profile, and I figured, with the new December ban list, I might as well give you all an update just to stay on top of any changes made to the deck. The whole purpose of the deck is to focus on just setting up a board that your opponent really can't get out of, with Ovion being able to shut down special summons and then just having back row set up for protection as well. So let's go ahead and get started with the deck profile. So to start off, for your monsters, I run 3 Evilswarm Caster. For those of you that don't know, the Evilswarm deck involves overlaying for mostly Exceed plays with the deck, and during the turn this card was normal summon. You can normal summon 1 Evilswarm monster in addition to your normal summoner set, and you can only gain this effect once per turn. Now, I also have been wanting to make a Steel Swarm deck profile, hopefully soon, and just needing to think of the best way to overall go about it, since the Evilswarm monsters with their Evilswarm can also work pretty well with the Steel Swarms and their effects. But otherwise, moving on, Caster is really good just for setting up your easy field of 2 level 4 Evilswarm monsters to overlay them either into the Evilswarm Exceed monsters or any other Exceed monsters you need for your plays. Same goes for Evilswarm Yugioh. With this one, you can only use each effect of Evilswarm Yugioh once per turn. While this card is in the graveyard, if it was sent there this turn, you can normal summon 1 Evilswarm monster for 1 less tribute, and you can banish 1 Evilswarm monster from your graveyard, then target 1 Evilswarm monster in your graveyard, add that target to your hand. And also it gains the effect, this card you can activate, you can normal summon 1 Evilswarm monster. So Yugioh helps for the additional normal summon, just being able to basically open up consistency with the graveyard play. You don't use the first effect for the less tribute in this deck. You use it mostly for just the additional normal summon recycle power to get off your Exceed summons very easily when you want to rely on this card for that play. And I also run 3 Evilswarm Heliotrope. I run this because Rescue Rabbit in the deck. It's very helpful just having this as a target, so you can just Rescue Rabbit right into your monsters you need for your Exceed play. Or even if you open up the Heliotrope, you can just use it with Caster and then have the Exceed summon right there. So opening up in your hand, as long as you have the necessary cards to go into for the plays, you're always at least able to rely on the Heliotrope for Exceed summoning. And I also run 3 Evilswarm Mandragora. Some people like to run 2. I like 3 just for the Allure of Darkness target I'm also running in the deck, because sometimes with the other monsters you don't really want to focus on getting rid of too many of these by banishing. So if you have extra Mandragoras to make use of as well, it can come in handy, especially if you go second, because if your opponent controls more monsters than you do, you can special summon this card from your hand. So if your opponent opens up a board, you can easily get out Mandragoras for the special summon and not take up your normal summon yet, and then just have that option available to you for your different plays. And then the same goes for Evilswarm Thunderbird. Only run 2 of this, but once again, I like it. May drop it down to 1 if I do change the numbers around with Mandragora and Evilswarm Thunderbird. I would only do it basically if I was to adjust some of the spell or trap lineup. I wouldn't want to add in any more monsters into the deck as it is currently, but very helpful just for the banish. It can avoid pesky problem cards during either player's turn when a card effect is activated, except during the damage step. You can banish this card you control, and during the next standby, return this card banished by this effect to the field, and if you do, it gains 300 attack. You can only use the effect of Thunderbird once per turn. So, pretty easy to avoid, but like I said, with the fact that you can also search some cards in the Evilswarm deck, might drop it down to 1. I'll show what trap lineup I would change for it later on in the video. And also, I run the 3 Rescue Rabbit. Now, this is just so you can easily hit your targets for the Evilswarm Yugioh, just because it's the only target doesn't mean anything else negative, because Rescue Rabbit is still level 4, so if you have additional monsters on the field and you open up multiple Rescue Rabbits late game, you could still make Exceed Summons, like I said, are the main plays you go for with this deck with your monsters. And lastly, for the monsters, I run 2 Ash Blossom. I wanted a hand trap option to fill in for the deck. If you want to take out Thunderbird or Mandragora, number-wise, you can even fill out some of your other spots with hand traps, including Ghost Ogre or Effect Veiler. You name it, you have that option available to you with these cards. If you don't have Ash Blossom, like I stated in all my other videos, you can even put in Effect Veiler or Ghost Ogre just as an additional spot for hand traps, but I always like to rely on them as well in the deck, just for the fact that they can definitely help against a lot of opponents' pesky cards. I don't also main deck Call by the Grave in the deck, so if you didn't want to go hand trap route, spell and trap wise, you can maybe even put some Call of the Graves in to mix and match those numbers also. And that is it for the monsters. We'll now move on to the spells. I run 2 Infestation Pandemic. All face-up Evilswarm monsters you currently control are unaffected by other spell/trap effects this turn. I run this. It's searchable with Ophion, so you never really have to draw this card. You should just be able to, hopefully, if you get lucky enough, add to your hand by search. Using it with cards like Torrential Tribute or Dark Hole, you name it, you can protect your Evilswarm monsters while destroying your opponents. It's a fun combo I definitely like to do with the deck, just by always chaining in response this card, or even just protecting your own Evilswarm monsters when they try and attack your opponent and they maybe have some back row or cards that could definitely affect your plays and monsters you want to go for. I also run 3 Allure of Darkness. I just like the draw power, like I said, with this card that it offers in the deck. I think with my last deck profile, I did run Pot of Desires, but I didn't really like banishing too many of my cards, especially with such a low monster count. I wanted to rely more on control of what I can do and what I can banish with the deck. So I just remained with the Allure of Darkness for the draw power for the cards. And I also run the 1 Reinforcements of the Army. This is for the 1 search of the deck, which is Evilswarm Caster, but a very important monster that makes up a lot of your different plays. So definitely want to make sure I can have access to it pretty easily. So that helps there. And lastly, the 1 Dark Hole. You can even run Regeki, but Dark Hole with Infestation Pandemic, like I said, can really, take care of your opponent's problems. But if you have the issue of not wanting to destroy your own monsters, as long as they're Evilswarm, Pandemic should be able to protect them, no problem. And that is it for the spells. We'll now move on to traps. I run 1 Infestation Infection. Once per turn, you can shuffle 1 Evilswarm monster from your hand or face up from your side of the field into the main deck to add 1 Evilswarm monster from your deck to your hand. What's great about this is if you open up some basically heliotropes, which would make your Rescue Rabbit play unplayable, you can use Infection to shuffle it back into the deck, add a more appropriate Evilswarm monster that you can use for plays, and then still have the Rescue Rabbits to go off of for your plays. Even with the 3 Rescue Rabbits, if you open up the rabbit instead of all 3 heliotropes in the deck, being able to maybe play-wise get them back to your hand or just have the option available to you, definitely does help for sure with Infection in the deck. Plus it's also an option just available to you for all of your basic search recycle. And also for more of the trap lockdowns, I run 3 Goes and Match. It's just good because each player can only control 1 attribute of a monster, which most of the time with my field I end up with just an Ophion on the field and then back row setup. So if you have that set and then you Goes and Match, you can take care of a pretty good number of decks against your opponent. And I also run 2, there can only be 1. This, with Goes and Match, is just more of a shutdown. Each player can only control 1 of each type, and if a player controls 2 or more of the same type, they must send the same to the graveyard until they control no more than 1 monster of that type. So with the type, if you're going up against like an all spellcaster type deck or an all warrior deck, this card can really help with that. And then just matched with the Goes and Match, you have option for just basically what your opponent has on the field and what they can make use of. And then for just additional traps that I run, for the Solemn, I just run 2 Solemn Strikes and 1 Solemn Warning. I didn't run Judgment in the deck just because I feel like we have plenty of other back row. These just help for stopping pesky monsters, like big boss monsters that would be difficult to get over. Otherwise, I also run 2 Storming Mirror Force, Link plays, being able to bounce them back, and then other extra deck monsters as well. Very, very helpful for sure. And I also run 2 Torrential Tribute. Once again, with the Pandemic, this card definitely does come in handy with the destruction capability and then just protecting your own Evilswarm monsters. And lastly, I run 1 Imperial Order. Now, I don't run too many spells in the deck. Ones that I do run are ones that I can basically have set up and ready to go, whether it be, the draw power or the search already taken care of, or just, the protection card, which if I have Imperial Order activated most of the time, won't have to worry about too many spells. So the Pandemic, can either come later, or if my opponent tries to get around the Imperial Order, then I can rely on the Pandemic. But still, another great lockdown card with all the other traps we're running in the deck. And that is it for the main deck. Moving on to the extra, I have 2 Evilswarm Ophions in the deck. I did have 3, but I wanted to give me some more options for, Exceeds in the deck. It's great because while this card has Exceed material, level 5 or higher monsters cannot be special summoned, and once per turn, you can detach 1 Exceed material from this card to add 1 Infestation spell trap from your deck to your hand, which is good because we have the trap card search available and also the Pandemic search available to you with this card. So most of the times you can just open up those and not have to worry about drawing them as long as you have the Ophion. And then being able to shut down level 5 or higher special summons really stops a lot of decks. So you have that good option available to you as well. And if you use up all the materials on the Ophion, you can just then basically link summon with it into one of our other link options we run in the deck. I also run 1 Bahamut. This is just good for taking special summon monsters by discarding an Evilswarm, so taking control of an opponent's monster. I also run 1 Thanatos. During the player's turn, you can detach 1 Exceed material from this card, face up, and it's not affected by other monster effects this turn. For protection options, Nightmare for the Book of Moon options, plus with all the other cards we run in the deck, including the Pandemics, just having these different Exceed monsters to rely on definitely does help. Same goes for Evilswarm Exciton Knight and Steel Swarm Roach, both with, pop effects for the field, so very, very helpful. Plus the fact that they are Steel Swarm and Evilswarm means that you can still use Pandemic with them as well. And then for the rest of the Exceeds in the deck, I run 1 Karen Gorgon Anti-Luminescent Knight, 1 Gagaga Cowboy, 1 Baguska, 1 Abyss Dweller, and 1 Tornado Dragon, just generic options available to you to run in the deck. If you didn't want to run Karen Gorgon, I was also testing out Dark Rebellion, just for some other dark options with the deck. And then for the Link monsters, I run 2 Wee Witch. This is just great for recycling your dark monsters in the graveyard, then just bumping up all your other ones on the field as well, being able to use a good amount of your extra deck monsters even to make it. And I run 1 Steel Swarm Origin. This is just Link 2 option for your Evilswarm monsters, more lockdown special summon as well with its arrows, so very, very helpful with that as well. But that is it for the deck profile. I hope you all enjoyed the video. I've been doing Evilswarm deck profiles for a good while now, so I hope you all enjoyed. We'll see when the next time I decide to make another one is. We'll see later down the road. But until then, please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. And Kira Twig out.